Shepherds for Sale, a new book by Megan Basham, warns Christians like you and me that the American church might be in some trouble. Stay tuned, and we'll talk. Well, good evening, and welcome back to another week of Explain, another week where we engage the culture from a biblical perspective in a manner which glorifies God. And this week we are going to be talking about that new book that everybody is absolutely losing their mind about right now, called Shepherds for Sale. It was written by Megan Basham, and needless to say, that has generated quite a bit of backlash from many different types of people. It is funny. I forget who mentioned it. No, I don't know who mentioned it now. And if I try to give credit away, I'll give it to the wrong person or something. Well, I'm not taking credit for it myself. But anyway, someone had mentioned that someone had brought up the idea that maybe people, I guess you could say on the Christian left, liberal Christians were freaking out about this book right before it came out because they knew what would be in it. You see, what Megan Basham has done with this book, Shepherds for Sale, is she basically investigated many different claims that have been made throughout the past couple of years, and found a lot of those claims to actually be true, right? And what do I mean by that? Well, a couple of years ago, if someone had told you, for example, that one of the largest organizations within the SBC, an organization that's supposed to deal with ethics and religious liberty, was taking tons and tons of money from a far left organization, a lot of people might have hit you on the head and been like, you're a conspiracy theorist, right? But Megan actually does the hard work of investigating these crazy things, and finds that a lot of them are true. And the reason that I'm taking the reason that I'm taking this angle on on this podcast will become clear in a little bit. But needless to say, I don't want to say that that none of these things were not already obvious to the human eye. Okay, let's put it that way. Now, don't get me wrong. Megan's research has uncovered a lot of things that pretty much nobody knew. Specifically stuff having to do with money. Megan has this style of investigating that I think she just calls it this, following the money, right? So she just looks at different donations that have been made to certain political campaigns, for example, or certain people that are sponsoring other people, or certain organizations that are linked in with other organizations and giving money to them. And why is that important? Well, because you know what? If you're giving your money to something, then that's probably because you want that thing to do well, for example, right? And so that's Megan's style of investigating, and that style of investigation has turned up a lot of things that people had no idea about. But there were other things, for example, the fact that J.D. Greer or Russell Moore, for example, that those people are actually woke, and now there's data to back it up. Data in the way of hard numbers and things like that, or quotes. Now the fact that there's data to back it up, that, it doesn't shock anybody that, we can now confirm that Russell Moore and J.D. Greer are actually woke. But at the same time, it's like you and me, the normal rank and file person, have been seeing that happen in front of us. So Megan's book serves a really helpful purpose in those two ways, right? So she's uncovering things that haven't been uncovered before. And at the same time, some of those things that she's uncovering are also just fortifying things that we were seeing with our eyes. But a lot of people were telling us, no, you're not actually seeing that. It's like, like Russell Moore, right? Russell Moore a lot of times will still identify as a conservative. And it's like, no, you're not. We know you're not. Everybody knows you're not. So, yeah. So that was, those were two really helpful things about Megan's book. Now, when we look at the book as a whole, one thing that a lot of people have been saying, and this is my aim. My aim today, you'll find plenty of other people who have done book reviews. You'll find plenty of other people that have done videos about the book and interviewed Megan and stuff like that. So my purpose in coming on here about this specifically today is to point out to you a theory that was first espoused by William Wolfe. And just to kind of confirm to you that that is what's actually happening, that what Wolfe had suspected was happening is actually happening. And what Wolfe was saying was actually happening. That you have people who are losing their mind over this book, and in their behavior of losing their mind over this book, they're actually outing themselves as exactly what the book is saying that they are. Right? Let's see if we can find that post and pull it up. I don't have it here in front of me. I don't have it word for word, but that's essentially what Wolfe was saying. Basically, that like if you're acting as if you're offended by this book or something like that, well, that's because probably either you're in it, either there's stuff that you did or that you participated in or supported that's in this book. So either you're in it, or someone you like maybe is in it, or maybe some combination of the two, right? So that's the idea. Let's see if we can find that post from Wolfe. Hopefully that's up now. But anyway, that's my purpose in coming on here today, is just to point out to you some of the backlash. A lot of people have said, for example, like that Megan is uncharitable in the way that she writes and things like that. But it's funny how those same people are being completely uncharitable in the way that they're responding to it. And they're actually being uncharitable, where their accusations against Megan are like unfounded. So that's my purpose in coming on here today. Not necessarily to provide like an in-depth review, although I am going to pull from maybe some other people that are a little bit smarter than me to kind of show you what I think about the book as well. But not just to, not specifically to review the book or anything like that, but my purpose in coming on here is to review the reviews, and even to review some of people's responses to Megan's book. So that's what we're going to be doing here today, and I hope to kind of show you that really it's not the way that Megan is writing that's uncharitable. It's the way that people are treating her in response that is uncharitable. I want to put some of those objections that people have made before you and show that they're uncharitable. Now, the first thing that we have to understand is that Megan brings up some names of people who a lot of people like. Like, for example, you'll find the name Tim Keller a lot in this book. Now, a lot of people like Tim Keller, and rather than even go any further with that, I'll just pull up exactly what Megan said about it. The thing is, we have to be okay with being even-handed, right? We have to be okay with saying, okay, some things about this ministry were good, and some things about this ministry were bad. Okay, we have to be okay with doing that. Because otherwise, if you're going to tell me that every single thing about a person's ministry, about a person's life, about a person's behavior is good, then you don't believe in original sin, right? You don't believe that people can be fallen. Okay, so if you're going to tell me that you believe what the Bible teaches about sin, for example, and about the fact that everybody, no one is righteous, and that all have sinned, if you're going to tell me that you believe that, then you have to be okay when people say, "Oh, well, some of this was good, some of this person's ministry was good, and some of this person's ministry was not as good, was not so good, was bad." So this is what Megan has to say. "I find it rather astonishing to see the all-out panic over my criticism of Keller. There were things I admired about Keller. There were things I learned from Keller. And there were also things I think were worthy of critique about Keller. At one point in the book, I even praise Keller and positively quote him pushing back against encroaching progressive theology. But I do not believe he was above critique, and yes, I found some of his actions and commentary worthy of criticism. I am not sure why this is so explosive." And I can tell you why this is so explosive, because a lot of people, especially in this past generation, viewed Keller as some kind of hero, as a giant, as the leader of their movement. And now he's passed away, and so that adds another layer of it, another layer to it. Where people are kind of a little bit hesitant because, his death is still, sort of recent. But all those factors are at play. But here's the thing. None of those factors make criticizing him off limits. Just like if someone wanted to, like, for example, like I think an example of this might be Doug Wilson, right? So people criticize Doug Wilson all the time, constantly, okay? But you never see Doug Wilson respond, negatively, I would say, to a reasonable critique. Like if someone critiques him reasonably, then he is going to accept that critique, and then he's going to counter with, okay, this is why I think that critique is incorrect. And he's very polite, and he's very careful with the way that he does it. And honestly, I mean, of course, I don't want to speak for Keller, but even like some of the things that Megan said, I would be shocked if Keller responded to Megan's criticism the way that his followers are responding to Megan's criticism, right? And here's the reason why. Because I believe that Tim Keller was a Christian, okay? And that's not a controversial statement, but there are some people who I've seen display very unchristian behavior towards Megan and towards other conservative Christians in the past that make me wonder, hey, are you actually a Christian? And it's not going to be any of the people that I'm about to talk about today. I'm not going to go question their salvation or anything. It's not mine to say. But I doubt that Keller would have responded in the way that a lot of people I'm seeing are responding. So let that be said. So Keller is mentioned a lot. Greer is mentioned. J.D. Greer is mentioned a lot. Russell Moore is mentioned a lot. The ERLC is mentioned a lot. And a lot of the stuff that's brought up specifically about money as it pertains to these groups and people, it has to be reckoned with. Like, the people can't just pass it off. And the interesting thing that I'm seeing is a lot of people are having a hard time reckoning with those, with that data. And so what they're doing instead is they're trying to hamstring Megan Basham in other ways. So it's like, for example, they'll try to like point out some small issue, what they think is an issue. Really, they're just like twisting her words in order to make an issue out of it. So they'll point to that, and then they'll try to question her credibility in her research and all these other things. So what that's showing you is they can't really combat the research. Many people, they're having a hard time coping with the research because it's research. So it's like data, right? Or it's quotes that people have said. So they're having a hard time dealing with that. So instead, they have to do what I would say. These are the things they have to do. They have to make claims that are not true, right? They have to claim things that are not true. I would call them unfounded claims, right? And they have to play word games. So you can remember that in the form of a rhyme. There you go. I just made you a little jingle. Unfounded claims and word games, right? Let's see if we can get Brian Savay to write a jingle for that. Anyway, I don't know what I'm saying. But that's what we see a lot of as it relates to Megan Basham's book, is people combat what she has to say by making unfounded claims against her and playing word games. And that's what we're going to see. One thing that I noticed a lot, one person I noticed was going after Basham a lot and attacking her character. This is what I mean by unfounded claims, was Mike Cosper. You might remember Mike Cosper from Christianity Today. He was the narrator on that podcast, The Rise and Fall of Mars Hill, which was about Mark Driscoll. So you might recognize his voice before you even recognize his name. But that's the guy. He's the Mars Hill podcast guy. Man, I've seen him come out of the woodwork like crazy these past couple of days, criticizing Megan's attention to detail, basically saying that, he mischaracterized something that Megan had said and then said, well, this is basically par for the course with her. She never pays attention to detail is basically what he was saying. He was just mischaracterizing what Basham had said. There you go. You've got the word games, right, where he has to kind of play around with the words in order to kind of impute some motive that maybe that he thinks Basham had where she didn't have. And then he has to make an unfounded claim where he basically says, well, she never pays attention to detail, or she makes a habit of not paying attention to detail, things like that. So there's him. There's also this tandem of people, this crew of people. One of them is Justin Taylor, and the other one is Samuel James. So what happened here was Samuel James wrote a review of Shepherds for Sale, and rather than go back and forth with Samuel or engage with engage based on my own understanding with some of the stuff that he's saying. Like I said, this is where I bring in some of the heavy hitters, some people that are a lot smarter than me. I'll be looking at what I think you say his name, Timon Cline. I think that's how you say his name. I don't think it's Timon Cline, but I could be wrong about that. But anyway, I'm going to look at what he had to say about that review in a minute. But before I get to either one of those two, I want to point you to something that another guy said. Okay, yeah, that's his name. See, it's been a couple of days, and I already forgot his name. Ben Marsh. Ben Marsh apparently has a history with Doug Wilson, where he went after Doug Wilson in the past, if my memory serves me right. But needless to say, he started like completely obsessing over Megan Basham's book. Tons and tons and tons, dozens of posts in a 24-hour period. Just absolutely losing his mind over this book. So you see that kind of like emotional, unhinged reaction to the book as well. But I do want to get into this other review here and what I thought of that. So again, remember the jingle. Unfounded claims and word games, okay? Keep that in your mind. So we have first this post by Justin Taylor. Should we conclude that the errors, mischaracterizations, and inconsistencies in Shepherds for Sale are intentional lies in order to sway readers and enrich the author, or could they be honest errors due to carelessness or a difference of interpretation, or perhaps even something Basham would do differently given the chance? And this is him, obviously, this is him quoting the other guy. This is Taylor quoting Sam James. So basically what happened was Samuel James writes this review, and this other guy, Justin Taylor, decides to like repost and amplify it or whatever. But remember, here we go. This is, again, the unfounded claims and word game. So he makes an unfounded claim, basically suggesting that the potential is there that Megan could be lying intentionally. Okay, and then the other possibility is also an attack on her character. I had someone tell me that that carelessness, claiming that someone is careless, is not an attack on their character. Well, yes, it is. You're telling them that they don't have an attention to detail and that their character is such that they're careless. That's an attack on their character as well. So you have attacks on her character either way. Either this person's saying either she's a liar or either she's careless, and both are pointing out a character flaw. Okay. And to get into the unfounded claims part, again, I told you I was going to bring in the heavy hitter. So let's look at what Timon Cline had to say about this. So he says, this is what's going to happen over and over again. Critics of Meg Basham's book are going to sow doubt, effeminate quibbling with characterization of events. So that's a way smarter way to say word games. So anyway, brief thread. That's what he's saying. Example, here's Samuel James, who granted has some nice things to say about the book, but suggests inaccuracies. So let's look at what James is saying here. I'll read it. Elsewhere, Basham claims that then SBC President J.D. Greer made a heavy push to change the SBC's name to Great Commission Baptists as part of what the media called a racial reckoning. This is misleading at best. In fact, the SBC had itself decided several years prior to approve Great Commission Baptists as an optional alternative descriptor for those who would prefer to use it. In February 2012, a task force appointed by then President Bryant Wright and chaired by former Lifeway President Jimmy Draper made a recommendation that the SBC keep its legal name but adopt an informal name that churches could use if they so choose. The task force was made up of 20 individuals, including Albert Mohler. So, of course, this is me speaking, but you've got James throwing in Mohler, like, okay, you have to listen because it's Albert Mohler, you know. But I'm sure Albert Mohler would be horrified that James is weaponizing him against Megan Basham. I mean, come on, right? So anyway, there you go. That's the little quote there. The thing is, Timon Cline continues, the thing is, Basham didn't deny that the SBC had pre-Greer been flirting with a new name. She says that Greer pushed it hard, and he did, as part of a racial reckoning effort, the media's words. Here's the quote. So anyway, that's just he's saying that she never denied that it was happening before, right? So James is importing some kind of meaning there that's just not there. Cline continues, prior to Greer's push, the name change had almost no traction. It was initially proposed for missional purposes outside the South. So why did it crop back up in Greer era? Great Commission Baptists, he brings another screenshot here. Great Commission Baptist was approved as an alternate unofficial descriptor after heated debate at the denomination's 2012 meeting, immediately after the election of the Reverend Fred Luter as the SBC's first African-American president. It did not appear to be widely adopted in the wake of that vote. Cline continues, the incessant apologies for slavery, given the history of the SBC's founding, aren't new. The name change piggybacked off of that. Remember, too, this was the summer of fiery but mostly peaceful protests. Greer was doing race reconciliation stuff at the time. And so then you just have proof of that in the screenshots underneath. And then Cline continues, so what's at issue is Greer's motivation as described by the media and never corrected by Greer for pushing the name change at the time that he did. This is, in fact, what he did. It did, in fact, coincide with race relations emphasis in the SBC. Here's easily accessible receipts. There, again, you have proof, more proof of that. Cline says, conclusion, there is no factual inaccuracy here, no mischaracterization. If you doubt what was animating Greer at the time, most of us watched it in real time. Our friend Woke Preacher TV has a mountain of clips to satisfy you. We'll go check that out, I guess, then. Here's why this matters. People are going to dunk on the book for inaccuracies, but really they're just sophists, okay? And then he's got that Taylor screenshot right underneath, which is what we have just been talking about. So people are going after this book for inaccuracies, but they're claiming that Basham is mischaracterizing what they're saying, but really they're mischaracterizing Basham. And no one, I don't care if it's you, I don't care if it's me, no one would want their words to be analyzed in the way that people are analyzing Basham's words. People would want to be taken for what they mean to say, not for what alternative meaning people are trying to import. I know it's hard for people to read these days, but you have to read well. You have to have good reading comprehension, okay? So let's let that be said. Other people are also saying, like, people might ask the question, hey, why is this a big deal? Like, why are you making such a big deal out of this? Like, who cares if the Christian church is neither left nor right or something like that, right? Well, who cares? Well, because the left stands for transgender surgeries for children, abortion, full-term abortion, and some people will even make claims like, oh, even after the baby is born under certain circumstances, and even if you couldn't catch someone saying that, the actions of people show that they don't value life even after the baby is born. That's just what happens when you're in a pro-death culture that doesn't criminalize abortion. But so that's why the church can't be neither left nor right, because we have a job, and shepherds have a job, right? And so this is what I was thinking about. I was thinking about 1 Peter 5 verses 1-4, which says, "So I exhort the elders among you as a fellow elder and a witness of the sufferings of Christ, as well as a partaker in the glory that is going to be revealed. Shepherd the flock of God that is among you, exercising oversight, not under compulsion, but willingly, as God would have you, not for shameful gain, but eagerly, not domineering over those in your charge, but being examples to the flock. And when the chief shepherd appears, you will receive the unfading crown of glory." So a couple things there. First of all, you have the fact that these people are these pastors, right? Pastors are admonished to shepherd the flock. Okay. And also in light of the fact that they are under shepherds of the chief shepherd. Okay, so the question then becomes, if the under shepherds fall out of line from what the chief shepherd would want, for example, standing up for the rights of the unborn, we know that murder is wrong. The Bible says murder is wrong. You should not murder. Okay, it's very simple. Abortion is murder. For example, that's just one example. Okay, that's where my mind goes immediately when we start to talk about things like this. So if the chief shepherd wants us to value life, and then the under shepherds don't value life, isn't that worthy of being pointed out? And that's really what Basham is doing. She's pointing this out, and also pointing out the fact that a lot of people took money to go left, to go away from what the Bible teaches about these things. And that is worth pointing out, and it's worth calling out. And so I think the reactions to this book are just showing that it's needed. Okay. And so that's what I have to say about that. I hope that you guys go and get the book. Once you get it, let me know what you think. Send us an email, send us a message on X, leave a comment on this video, whatever you'd like. All right. Well, I hope you guys have a great week, and we will see you next time.